This is such a weird feeling.
Oh, good luck. There's the keys. Thank you very much.
And that looks like something from Alien.
Hey, do you want to lift the rocker cover off?
I can't get over that yellow gum. I've never seen anything like that before. Welcome to my car graveyard and episode 3 of our Rover restoration. A lot of you guys will know where this car's from, but I want to talk about this. In episode 2, we showed you that this was a brand new, untouched Rover 25 shell, and we were going to use it to take bits from and restore my car. Now, there's some pretty serious divots in this one, but all of that has led to this. The car's been welded, painted, and that solar red is looking better than it ever did. The team has done a bunch of work since the last episode. Mick, it's looking like a minter already.
Yep.
The last time we saw you were doing a bit of cutting and welding, so what's happened since?
Okay, so in the last episode you saw me removing part of the flitch and the inner flitch and the strengthening panel. That has all been cut out, the new shell, and fitted into this. We also found some nasties on the driver's side as well, so they were cut out and replaced from the new shell.
Yep.
What really surprised us is we thought the sills and the actual structure of the car were really good.
It did look all right, didn't it?
It did, until we looked a little bit further and it was just sealer that was holding the sills on.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, we had to remove both sills and part of the inner sill structure on the driver's side.
Okay.
So that's been replaced. Driver's side rear wheel arch, that's been rebuilt. Driver's side rear bumper mount has been rebuilt, and a bunch of other stuff. Inner wings, bumper mounts, other bits and bobs that were rotten, so we've rebuilt those as well.
So yeah, when we first saw the car, there was a sort of black lining along the sill, which made it look okay, but we've got it down here.
You've got the sill there.
This is what you cut out.
Yes.
That is a shocker. So how did you find out? Did you just remove that black coating?
We started to get rid of the black coating with a wire wheel,
yeah,
and you could just put your finger through it.
Wow, okay. And was that it? Were those the surprises? So 3 or 4 surprises?
The front cross member, obviously, as you know, all the parts we take off, we have sandblasted.
Yes.
So we can powder coat, which then reveals any nasties that we don't want to see afterwards. The front main structural cross member that the engine and the steering hang on, teabagged.
Okay.
So that's been replaced as well. And one other structural part that goes across the inner wings at the front, that's also teabagged, so that's been replaced as well. So apart from that, all's good. So
how much stuff have you taken from that donor shell out in the yard?
A fair bit, to be fair. Both inner wing strut top mountings, the strengthener from this side, and we actually cut both sill sections out of the new shell. Guys out there that know about doing body repairs, nothing fits better than genuine. We've got a genuine shell. Why would we put spurious sills on it? So that's what we did. We cut the sills off in its entirety. Put them back in, spot welded them back on, done.
And parts for Rover 25 are relatively cheap. So when you're faced with something, are you most likely just going to go and replace it, or are some things worth repairing?
It depends on the part. As we've mentioned, the front cross member, the time and effort to do that, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
For 30 quid, you can buy it on the second-hand one.
Sure.
Done. You know, different, I suppose, for the guy at home if he's got nothing to do all day. That's fine, carry on and repair it.
Sure.
Obviously, from a business point of view, you've got to look at what's most effective. But yeah, the body shell's definitely done what we said we were going to do with it.
Okay, and in this episode, we're going to start rebuilding the car, and just like the Mondeo, you've been powder coating.
We've been spraying, powder coating, cleaning. So there's some of the small selection of stuff that we've done. Drive shafts, anti-roll bar, steering rack, some little brackets and trinkets, just to bring it all back to life and freshen it up.
Okay, but the main thing today is going to be getting that K-Series going.
We're going to put the head on the K-Series, get it back in the car. The guys are going to build the rest of the shell up. So hopefully by the end of this episode, we should hear a K-Series running.
I cannot wait. I remember how gobsmacked I was when I saw the Mondeo engine finished. This is equally as nice. It's an absolute beauty. So Mick, what have you done since we were last here?
After the disassembly, we went through and measured everything to make sure that everything was in spec. The crank was out of spec, so we had that reground.
Yep.
So we just had crank grind, new big ends, new main bearings, new thrusts, new oil pump, We checked the bores. There was 0 wear in the bores.
Good.
So we've cleaned the pistons, had those blasted, and we've put brand new rings on. Rods were fine. We've gone for new water pump, new oil pump, as I said, all new gaskets and seals. The block was clean, the cylinder head was reconditioned, all cut, and that's been skimmed as well, so that's all ready to go. New thermostat, and anything else we can find that we need to change, we have done. Also, I'd like to throw a massive shout out to MIR Motorsport. They pulled it out the bag for me. I was struggling to find 1.4 piston rings,
right,
and they sorted it right out for me, so big shout out to those guys.
Cool. So today we're going to be putting all of this back onto here.
We are indeed.
The main thing is the head gaskets.
Yes.
So this is the original skanky one.
Yep.
Explain what's going on with this one here.
Okay, so we're removing the original type head gasket that Rover fitted. As everybody knows, they were not brilliant. And we're actually going to change it to a triple layer head gasket. So you can see it's a triple layer sandwich.
Okay.
Much better sealing properties, and it gives a little bit of a bit of a help with if there's any undulation in anything or anything moves. This will help keep it sealed.
So this is like the Darth Vader of head gaskets, and this is the Jar Jar Binks.
You could say that, yes.
Okay, so what's the first thing we need to do to get that onto here? Okay,
there's a couple of things we need to check. One of the major things is liner protrusion. Okay. We need to make sure that there is a liner protrusion above the deck of the block in order for the head gasket to seal on the liners.
Okay, let's have a go about that.
So what we use is a dial gauge indicator, which we clamp onto the top of the liners. Mm-hmm. So then we zero the DTI gauge on the top of the block. So we're at 0, as you can see. And then a little twist of the base, which puts us on top of the liner.
Okay, so that's
and
saying...
you can see we've got 0.4 of a mil of liner protrusion, which is in spec. So that just shows that the liner is protruding over the top of the block a very small amount to give our head gasket something to clamp onto.
Okay, so what's too much and what's too little?
I believe the maximum is 0.7 of a mil.
Okay.
And obviously too little would be 0.
Okay, so 0.4 is bang on.
We're bang in the middle, so we're well on spec there.
It's important to check each cylinder sleeve is within spec and use shims if needed to ensure good fitment of the head gasket.
Okay, so we know the liner protrusions are correct and in spec, so all we need to do now is just give it a little wipe down. We know everything's clean, but it doesn't hurt to give it a wipe down.
Yeah.
And if you like to grab the head gasket, noting that it says top on it.
Yes.
Yep.
And this way around?
Yep, over the dowels. That's it.
Cool.
I'd like to give that a little wipe as well. And then the cylinder head, same again, little wipe. And that's your front.
That's the front, okay.
And drop her onto your dowels. There you go, straight on.
Very cool.
Beautiful.
It just makes sense to me having those 3 layers and then you actually heard them squished down there. You just know that's going to seal better.
If you can imagine how much clamping force there is between the head and the block when all those bolts are tightened down. Yeah. Okay, so next is the
legendary long bolts.
The legendary bolts.
I love these.
Grab your bolts.
Middle first?
Middle first, just make sure they go all the way down into that girdle at the bottom.
Yep.
That's it. That's it, little wiggle. Okay, cool. So now we've got a torque sequence that we need to follow.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is a one-hit wonder, isn't it?
This is a one-hit wonder because these bolts are a torque to yield. Once they're torqued and stretched, that's it.
Okay.
If you remove them again, the bolts have to be thrown away because you can only torque them once.
Cool.
Okay, Mike, so we need to run the head bolts now down to the cylinder head surface. So, little speed brace.
Okay.
If you run those bolts in, and then I can do the torque up procedure.
Okay, so what am I waiting for here? How
You're
far should I
waiting
go down?
just to feel it hit the head. You'll feel it as you go down. It should feel nice and smooth. And then when it hits the head, it should stop. Like that.
Okay.
That's it.
I proceeded to run the rest of the bolts in before handing back to Mick for the torque up procedure. Okay, what next?
Right, I need to torque them down.
Right, that's the important job, so I'll leave that to you.
I need to be that side.
Okay. So this is where that order becomes super important.
Yes, it does.
And what happens if you were to basically torque it just by hand and not go by the instructions? What could happen?
Well, if there's two things. If you don't torque it in the correct sequence, you can distort the head, or you can over torque or under torque them. If you over torque them, there's a possibility of breaking the bolt or pulling the threads out of the girdle at the bottom.
Okay, so it's telling you 20 Newton meters, 180 degrees, 180 degrees. What does that mean?
Okay, 20 Newton meters is the first torque of strength on the bolt.
Okay.
And then your second and your third steps are degrees. So basically half a turn and then half a turn.
Okay.
The reason we do it in 2 steps is to let that bolt yield. If you were to turn that 360 degrees in one hit, there's a possibility that bolt would not take it and it would break.
Okay, so
if-
while we're standing here, that bolt is literally very slightly stretched.
Correct. Yeah. So by the time you've done bolt number 1, you've done the other 9. By the time you get back to bolt number 1, it's already stretched, so you can do your next 180.
Very cool. Okay, let's see it.
Okay. So we set our units, 20 Newton meters. You hear that crushing the head gasket?
That's your 20 Newton meters.
That's
Yes,
20.
that's
There you go.
very
Hear it?
cool.
Yeah.
So that's those 3 layers compacting together.
Yeah.
Okay, and while he's doing that, the strip down of this engine was the centre point of episode 2, and there were quite a few comments that were saying we were a bit harsh about the K-Series engine. A lot of people were saying that there were retrospective fits that made this engine super reliable, and that's fine. But from factory, these things were ticking time bombs. You get to about 40,000 miles, the head gasket goes, and it can be pretty catastrophic. I experienced it myself. So yes, there are fixes for it, but from factory, this was a very unreliable engine. So I still stand by the title of that video. And the thing is, it's not that we were slagging off this engine and then chucking it in the bin, putting it in the scrap heap. We're saving it. This is going to be one of the best K-Series engines going on the market. We like a K-Series. As we were saying, it's revvy. It's a pretty fun engine to have in a hatchback, and this is going to be an awesome one. And hopefully, by the end of this episode, we'll be able to start it up. How are we getting on?
All done. That's our first 20 Newton meters.
Awesome.
So now I'm just setting the degrees. Do you want to have a go at some of these, Mike?
Yes, if I'm allowed to.
Of course you are. You'll need to be this side.
Okay.
So that's number 1. I always put your foot against there to counteract the engine moving.
Okay.
And you literally pull that. You can stop and re-ratchet. And
Okay.
as soon as that beeps, that's it, 180.
Okay. So this has got a special
It's got a gyro
gauge on
in it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's got a gyro inside, so it remembers where you got to.
But anyone with a normal
A
torque
bar,
range
you would have to go.
from
Yeah,
there
you'd
to
have to just mark it yourself.
there.
Okay, so pull when you're ready. Nice and steady, and when it beeps, stop. That's it.
That was really scary.
Number 2. Okay, so
That was enjoyable.
yeah, now you've torqued all those up and they're all to spec. As with all the bolts that are tightened on vehicles, you'll notice that there's blue marks and everything.
Yeah.
If you'd like to use the pen and mark all the bolts.
Mad Ford mix pen. Do I need to mark it in a certain orientation
no,
or
just a mark
straight
is
across?
fine, yeah. Just so we know they're done.
Cool. I'm going to mark them all in one direction because I'm just like that.
Excellent.
Okay, Mick, so cam gearing next?
Camshafts, lifters, and the cam girdle next. Yes.
Let's crack on.
Okay.
So that's the end of day one of this episode. We've got the engine pretty much finished. There'll be a couple of things to do in the morning, and then we'll get this up into the car. See you in the morning. We're back for day two, and I've been driving about in this. Depending on when this goes out, you may have seen it in our Richard Hammond Workshop Open Day video, and it shows how much I've fallen back in love with MG Rover through this series. I've bought an MG ZTT, 2.5 litre V6, so a similar recipe to my Mondeo, but it's the estate, which is just cooler. But never mind this Rover, let's get inside. Morning, Mick.
Morning,
I see
Mike.
a shiny new alternator there. What
Yep.
needs to happen to get this into the car?
Okay, so first things, alternator on, adjusting bracket, auxiliary belt, alternator belt.
Yep.
Then the engine can come off the stand onto the bench, flywheel, clutch, a few little trim plates, and then we can put the transmission on, and then it's ready to go in the car.
Easy.
Easy peasy.
We still needed a few extra bits and pieces to get the car running, including, crucially, a fuel tank. Fortunately, Paul from the YouTube channel Project Nigel came to the rescue, driving all the way down from Rochdale in his own one-of-a-kind Rover 25 to drop them off. So the heavies have come in and the engine is now connected in terms of all of its engine mounts. So it's now solidly in the car. The next thing's going to be putting the fuel tank in, connecting the fuel to the engine, connecting the electrics, getting all the fluids into the engine, and then we should be good for a startup. Fingers crossed. The fuel tank is now in, the lines are connected, so now it's time to get some LIQUI MOLY fluids into the car. First up is the engine oil. This is their 10W40 Molygen. It's low friction, high performance, it's quality stuff. And it comes in this pretty cool container. Next up is their 7590 transmission fluid. This stuff will strike the balance between lubrication and friction for those nice slick changes. And although it's not relevant for this car because it's a brand new refreshed engine, I really recommend this stuff. This is LIQUI MOLY's injector cleaner. So if you've got a high mileage car that could do with rescuing a bit of its power, you simply put this into your fuel tank, it'll run its way around the engine and you'll get some of your brake horses back. Once the car is a bit more built up, we'll get the rest of the fluids in and they will all be from this brand. LIQUI MOLY has been an awesome sponsor of this series, but if you would like to support the channel, click the link in the description below and you'll be able to see what products they produce for your car. Simply plug in your registration to their search function and you'll see everything they have to offer. Okay, let's start her up.
Okay, Mike, so engine's in. We've primed the fuel pump, so we've got fuel pressure.
Yep.
So as before, give it a crank. Make sure we get oil light going out, battery light going out, and the engine light going out. If any of those stay on, just stop cranking.
Okay, and just to caveat, there isn't an exhaust system on it right now, so it might sound a bit like a Lancaster bomber, but I've got a good feeling about this one for some reason.
Okay, let's give it a go.
Okay. That was slick. That sounds so smooth. Give it a rev. Oh yeah. It's good to hear it's firing on board. That is smooth. Beautiful. Try and give that a rev. Bloody good job there.
Awesome.
What an awesome way to end the day. That engine is sounding so sweet, loud but super smooth. Now, the plan still is to finish this car in a final episode and then auction it off and donate the money to a military charity, because the military allowed this project to happen. And we've chosen a charity. It's going to be Scotty's Little Soldiers. They're a charity that supports bereaved kids and young adults up to the age of 25 that have lost a parent that was serving in the military. I cannot imagine what that feels like, so it's going to be awesome to finish this car, get it sold and donate to that charity. And if you fancy a mint Rover 25, stay tuned for that final episode, which will be coming very, very soon, where you can bid on this and that money will go to that awesome cause. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I've been Mike, and don't forget to subscribe to DriveTribe.